Hello, welcome to Betfair's Cricket Ashes Trade Talk. I'm Tom Haylock, joined by Darren Parkin. The series was precariously placed. Australia 2, England 1. We've got 2 tests to go. I can't wait. I've been on the edge of my seat throughout this whole series. I can't actually think of a better series. Darren Parkin, are you enjoying it as much as me?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I can't think of too many instances where both sides could win a test match with an hour left or half an hour left. In the 05 Ashes, there were some that went down to the wire, but usually sort of halfway through the final day, there was one likely winner and one side trying to save it. But first test, second test, third test, all results on the table going into the last half an hour of play. It's been an incredible contest, and probably expected that England were going to win one of them, and their changes worked pretty nicely for them.
Yes, we'll get to their squad in a minute as well, but what did you make of the third test? Obviously, a lot of controversy in the second test, and we expected a hostile environment for Australia in the third test. I was probably a little bit disappointed. I thought that we'd walk into a bit of a tirade, Darren, but what did you make of the third test?
Yeah, I've got to back or lay on that a little bit later on. But yeah, it felt like in the first 2 tests that when England had control, they just either play a loose shot or make a mistake and they just slip a touch. But it felt in the third test that it was perhaps us that did that. Obviously, we had a sizable first innings lead, but Stokes then was able to get England pretty close. And then when we had opportunities to build the lead, we lost wickets in probably silly fashion at various stages of the game. And in a minute, I want to hear from Ryan Harris, who was a superstar, and he spoke about how all the conversation has been around England's tactics with Bazball, but he felt we got our tactics wrong a little bit in giving away easy singles and playing some loose shots. But yeah, I felt that we probably squandered positions of control, but Mitch Marsh was the star of the show. His first innings 100 and his efforts with the ball have given selectors quite a bit to think about.
Yeah, exactly right. We'll get to the DRS, obviously the review of the series so far, and you mentioned Mitch Marsh. Wow, what a test 100 that was, and what a return to test cricket. I love the man, and he's always playing practical jokes and having a laugh, and he's the ideal, perfect man to bring on tour, but he delivered when he was called on, and it's going to be hard to drop him on the back of what we saw in the third test.
Yeah, and look, Cam Green probably comes in. It's just a question of whether that's for another quick, whether it's for a batsman like Dave Warner, or whether it's for Murphy, the spinner, and they don't pick one. But we'll chat about that a little bit later on. But yeah, fascinating performance from Mitch, dominated with the bat, and I guess it was quite sad with him talking, some of the comments he made post-match saying, the public might hate me and all of that sort of stuff. And I guess it's sad that players would feel that way at times, given, the criticism about his place in the team. He's always been capable, and he certainly demonstrated that here. But I will slide in those thoughts of Ryan Harris, the former Aussie quick who took 113 test wickets, just on the Aussie tactics in that third test and where perhaps we let it slip.
I've been probably disappointed more with our tactics against it than anything. I think our starts to innings, I think what they needed, what do they need, 270 or 260 to win that last test. I think the last morning or the fourth morning, I reckon we gave them 50, 60 runs in singles just by putting the field out. Now, again, it's as I said a number of times in a few different forums, we're 2-1 up, so it's hard to sit and criticise. But I believe in that situation there, they probably could have just built some more pressure. We could have built more pressure to make them play bigger shots, and if they had done it, then so be it. So I think, and they've been quite clear, England, that they are probably happy to lose a game here and there to win more. Yes, I just talked about the catches and the opportunities that they missed. They have been in situations where if, Joe Root bats longer in that second test, I think it was, when he's out for 50 and gets 100 or 80, they probably win that test. Declaring in the first day on day one of the test match, it's not a normal thing or a usual thing, but they nearly won that test. We only won by 2 wickets. So, yeah, look, long answer to your question is, again, they're just happy to take the game on, entertain, and again, probably lose before they to win. So, it's worked for them. I think they'd won before this series. I think they'd won 10 or 13 test matches or even 11 straight or whatever it was. So it's definitely working for them. I just thought coming up against us with the better attack, consistent attack, that it was going to be hard for them. And we've seen that in patches. But again, I just don't think personally we've built enough pressure in certain times. And day 4 on when they were chasing that total, I think they probably needed 170 in the last day. That was probably one of those occasions. So. Look, it's no doubt it's been fascinating, and again with 2 more to go, that's why I say I still give them a show, because if they come out and put it together, we know how dangerous they can be. We just got to make sure we're Australia at our best.
And yeah, it was a lot of people looked at the loose shots, but he made a good point that we were giving away a lot of really easy singles in that second innings, which allowed England to just build into the contest and they were able to chase down those runs. But yeah, it looks like we're going to end up picking two middle order all-rounders in Mitch Marsh and Cam Green. But what did you make of the performance of Steve Smith in his 100th test? Tommy, was probably a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah, I think the most underwhelming has been Marnus Labuschagne. Now, he's been a player that I've probably been critical of. Even when he's made runs, he's given chances and been dropped. At one stage, I think the data said he was the luckiest test batsman in the game at the current time, with the amount of chances that had gone down and he'd been dropped. So he's been somewhat fortunate, but he hasn't been dropped much at all this series, and his chances have been taken, and that's impacted his form. He's probably the most disappointing thing, and we talk on the tactics of Australia, but Smith getting out softly to Moeen Ali and Labuschagne's sweep shot getting caught on the boundary, if those 2 players go on to make 15, 20 more runs, and that's been my biggest criticism of Marnus Labuschagne, and everyone, and I've disagreed, and I'm laying these comments that Labuschagne's batting 3 and everyone's saying he's coming in early, but he's actually had starts, Darren. He's made runs, he's got himself settled, and then he's got out. So I'm not blaming Warner for his poor form, where a lot of people are. I think it's on him, and once he gets to that 25, 30 mark, he's got to go on and make at least 50, 60 there.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. He's had, even on the tour of India, he was making scores between 25 and 40 on a pretty frequent basis. And you raised a really good point on the amount of times he was dropped over the last 18 months. And sooner or later that luck's going to run out. Look, he's a fine player, and I'm sure that he'll work his way through that. But yeah, his shortcomings at times in the series have left us vulnerable at number 3. So we certainly need something from him. And it's only going to take one. I mean, obviously we're in a position now where if Smith or Labuschagne have one day out, we probably do enough to wrap the series up. So he's obviously got that opportunity to still be a really significant factor.
I think that's a huge upside for Australia. Smith's obviously had one test where he's played well, but Marnus Labuschagne test and Smith not performing at their best. Huge upside for Australia. If they can, as you say, have a day out, back for 2 or 3 sessions, and that's the huge upside for Australia. What we do with the list and the squad is going to be really, really interesting heading into the 4th test. Broad gets Warner again. Is it 17 times now, Darren?
It is, and obviously the same way, either nicking behind or Warner misjudges one and is out LBW. And that was part of why I was really keen to chat to Ryan Harris, is about, well, fundamentally in terms of nuts and bolts, why is that happening? And we asked the question to Ryan about why is it exactly that Stuart Broad has the wood on David Warner?
Oh, it's the angle that he creates coming around the wicket. The angle, and again, I haven't spoken to Davey about this. I've spoken to a few other guys that have the theories on it, but it's coming in at you and making him, and obviously coming in and swinging away. So it's coming in at the stumps or coming in and feeling like he has to play at the ball. Again, I thought he was really good in the first test. He was going into the ball, he was going across his stump, so he's lining his eyes up with the ball and allowing the ball to leave the ball. Now again, I don't know what he's done different since then, but Broad's he's relentless on that length and line, and again, it wasn't a batter, but hearing ex-batters speak about it over the last week or so or few weeks, once someone's got your measure, it's hard because it's like a rhythm. As soon as that batsman comes in, the bowler just locks into that area, and because they're good enough at this level, that's what they do. So it's that angle coming in, he swings it away, and then he'll straighten one, so he feels like he has to play. That's the other point of it as well, is that the one that doesn't swing that he might leave is the one that's going into his pad or into the stump. So, and he's bowling that unbelievable length that he can't quite get forward to and you can't quite get back to. So it's and this is the thing about it. It's and a lot of people have given it to David a little bit, but it's bloody hard, and we know that he should be doing it because that's his job. But If he can get in, if he does play, he can get in through that first hour, combat that first sort of little bit, then get to lunch. I think he's not far away from a big score. So I think that's why they will leave him in. It'd be a huge decision to drop him, especially being 2-1 up and in the middle. And I've seen Usman Khawaja's comments over the last day or two that what he offers off the field and in that change room is huge as well. And that's what people have got to realise. So, and the other thing about it is, I guess, is who do they bring in? Marcus Harris is there, but with the moving ball, I don't know how that goes either. Is it a better option? I think Marcus is a long-term prospect, no doubt about that. But is it a better option over there? And there's even talk about Mitch Marsh if David wasn't going to play going up the order. Now that's a makeshift thing. I'm not a big fan of that. I think it is a specialist position, especially being in England. So they got to look at that as well. So, and that's nothing against Marcus Harris. I just think that David being in that team, he fights. They call him the bull. He fights for everything, and I think he'll hopefully, if he gets an opportunity, he'll do the same in this test.
And yeah, it's quite fascinating. I mean, full credit to Broad. I mean, you're dealing with a superstar, and for Warner, you can understand why it's happening. He's stuck in that position where, do I defend? Do I attack? Do I leave? Is this the one that's going to come back? And it must be really difficult, I think, Tom, to work through that challenge against a player of that quality.
Yes, he's a master of his craft, Stuart Broad, and he's nailed Warner. It's what mindset Warner's in. It's really interesting. And what are his tactics going forward against Broad? Does he bat out of his crease? I know he's changed the way he's lined up. He's dug footholes to know where his off stump is and really worked on that. But he's batting okay. He's just susceptible with that, and Ryan Harris touched on that, the tactics with that straight ball or the ball going into him with 4 going away from him, and he doesn't know which balls to play at. So really interesting. Does he come out swinging, be a bit more aggressive? He's talked about that prior to the series. I don't know what he does. I don't know what his mindset is, but we've stuck fat so far. I just pray if he's another huge upside. If he can make another 50 or whatnot, goes a long way to Australia winning.
Yeah, that really good dig at Lords where he got to 65 or 70 or thereabouts and then fell. But he's getting us away to some sort of a start, not in this test match just gone, but certainly prior to that. And as Ryan Harris touched on, you look at the backup options, guys like Marcus Harris, and I'd still be more confident with Warner in the English conditions at this point than I would be with someone like Marcus. So I think we have to go down that path. The only other option would have been to drop Warner and pick Mitch Marsh and Cam Green and then open the batting with Travis Head or Marnus or something like that. But probably a bit too experimental at this stage.
Yeah, especially when we hold a 2-1 series lead. Yep. The query, and I'd love to see this, I would, if we were to play, and we'll get to team lineup in a minute, but if we were to play Cam Green and Marsh in the same side, I would not be opposed to opening with Cam Green. As a right-hander, he's got the technique and he's struggled with the bat, so he's not actually losing a lot. I'd hate to take away from a massive strength, and we've seen it over the last 12 months or so, Travis Head coming in and taking the game away from their opposition. I'd hate to lose the middle order. So that would be one tactic I would like to look for. But let's get to segment 2, Darren. I believe you've got a back or lay question. It's time for LBW.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cheeky one in that we probably spent all of the days between the second and third test getting lectures from the motherland, if you will, on etiquette and sportsmanship and how to behave and, the way that our players act and the way that our spectators act because Alex Carey ran out the wandering Johnny Bairstow. We then had Steve Smith, who, love him or hate him, is an all-time great of the game, playing his 100th test and getting booed on and off the field. So I find it really interesting that we get a week of lectures on sportsmanship and etiquette, and then they boo a former captain on and off the ground in his 100th test. I thought, well, there's hypocrisy and then there's hypocrisy. So, yeah, maybe they can shelve the lectures if that's the way they're going to treat a former captain of his country. But are you backing or laying that?
Oh, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I think you've answered it for me, Darren. It's a clear lay. There's so much hypocrisy of everything that's happened, and Australia aren't ones to preach generally on the ethics of the game and the spirit of the game. But we're there to win an Ashes series. It doesn't get any bigger than this. What I hated seeing is the face mask of Steve Smith crying in the crowd, low blow. I don't like the look of that, and that is against the spirit of the game for a brilliant Test cricketer. Test batsman who's got an extremely good average, and he's one of the best batsmen of the modern era.
Yeah, I mean, would we be, with all due respect, having masks that depict Ben Stokes knocking someone out in a pub or something like that? You know what I mean? It's that there are things you go to, and exactly that's what I mean. There are just places you don't go. I mean, I understand that maybe we're being sensitive in that space. And as I said, I don't mind the banter and the back and forth. My only point is, don't complain about sportsmanship if you want to play that game, to be honest. So, I think it's all... I mean, you do all of that and you shake hands at the end.
Osman Khawaja came out and made some strong points about if he had children, he wouldn't want them going to the game and putting them in front of the scenes that we've seen. And I know he said the same thing about Australian cricket as well. So that's really interesting. But I don't think I don't think England cricket and the supporters are anyone to speak about or take them over high ground, I guess. Let's get to the power play, Darren. Let's talk about the team selection. England have announced their squad. Jimmy Anderson to play, and Robinson, who probably can talk in the twos now. I know he won't be having a rest. But what do you make of... We'll get to England first. Jimmy Anderson playing.
Yeah, it's his home ground. Is it conceivably the last Ashes Test match that he plays? I mean, he's been an unbelievable player for them, and you think he'll relish being at home. Admittedly, the pitch maybe doesn't suit him so much, but look, Robinson wasn't penetrating as much as they would have liked. The one thing I find interesting with England's squad, you mentioned earlier about do Australia open with Cam Green or do something like that. England, obviously Moeen Ali wasn't supposed to play in the series, but he's come in with Leach injured, and now it looks like he'll bat 3. So they're actually elevating him up the order to protect, obviously, Joe Root, but also to protect Harry Brook, who's been a tremendous shot maker in the middle order. So Moeen Ali, not a sacrificial number 3, but I think clearly they're saying if someone's going to be under the pump early, it might as well be Moeen to allow Root, who's our best player, and Brook, who's our best shot maker, a little bit more protection.
Is he the lamb to the slaughter, Darren? Is that what you're saying?
I think if he was to, cop a bit of a barrage of short stuff and make 20 and just take the sting out of the new ball, and he would have done the job. I think they'd rather that than, if they lose an early wicket, have Joe Root come in under pressure and go out. So not a sacrificial lamb. I just think he's almost the most expendable, if that makes sense. That if they can get 20s and 30s out of him, then he's absorbed the new ball and done his job for them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like it. Whatever happened to putting your best batsman at number 3, taking the brunt, taking the game away from it. That's what made Ricky Ponting so good, coming in at 3 and 4 and making runs. And that's why Labuschagne's been so good as well. I don't like it at all. And I think that's a weak part of their side if they've got him coming in at 3. So he's not the best bowler in the world, and he's not a great batsman either. So I don't think Australia will almost be happy for him to come in at 3, I would have thought. So hopefully, it means that England are 2 down for not many early, and we're exposing Joe Root early. I'd much rather put a good batsman in and hopefully make a 50, and you've got Joe Root coming in with an old ball, tired bowler. So really interesting tactics there. Australia, what are we doing?
Well, yeah, I posed the question to Ryan Harris, which is interesting, and I guess the questions we put to him was, do they pick a spinner? Because obviously they didn't want to bowl Todd Murphy much on the last day at Headingley. Is it a no-brainer that Cam Green comes in because Mitch Marsh really can't be dropped? What do you do with Warner? So I put that to Ryan Harris, and he gave his thoughts on what he thinks will take place.
Yeah, really good question. I think there's a number of options in this area, and it's $1 million question. We won't know obviously till tomorrow at the toss, but I feel that I think Boland's he's probably been a little bit, well, again, this is from afar. I'm not in the squad, so I reckon he's been a little bit surprised, and maybe they've been a bit surprised at how hard they've come at him, and he probably hasn't been as effective over there, which I thought he would be. I personally think he probably should have played at Lords, where the slope might have helped him a bit. But they played Hazelwood, they won the test, so they can't really complain about that. But look, the makeup of this team, I don't think Murphy will play. I think if he was going to bowl Nathan Lyon's overs, then he definitely plays. I think we saw in the last test that Paddy probably hasn't got the faith in him at the moment. A couple of reasons that he's probably haven't quite got the trust in him yet. He's obviously a young bowler as well, and they probably don't want to throw him to the walls a bit either. So in this format, in these conditions against a team that knows them pretty well and are coming pretty hard. So I don't think he'll play. I think Green will come back in for him. I think Boland will drop out for Hazelwood, and I think Marsh stays in, and I also think Warner stays in as well at the top. So is that 11? I think it's 11.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, so I think they stick with Davey Warner now. I mean, look, he's got a big monkey on his back with Stuart Broad. I was really surprised how he started the series. I thought he started the series really, really well. I'm not sure if he's gone away from that or what he's done in second test or even third test. But the first innings of the first test, he was really good. So if he can emulate that and get back to that feeling at the crease, I'm confident he can get some runs. But yeah, I think he'll stay. So I think Murphy and Boland will miss. That's my gut feel. But again, and then Travis Head can take the spin overs. That'll be my gut feel.
So just recapping Ryan Harris's changes were he had Hazelwood coming in for Boland, who obviously hasn't been able to penetrate in the English conditions, and then he had Cam Green replacing Murphy so that their pace attack would be Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood, and then obviously both Marsh and Green, and he'd have Travis Head as their spinner who would bowl the overs that Murphy would otherwise bowl. Do you kind of see it that way? He's got Warner holding his spot in the team.
I find it fascinating. So we've got the pitch that looks like it's got good grass coverage, and we're only analysing a picture at the moment. Haven't seen it close up, but looks like it's got a lot of grass cover. It doesn't look green whatsoever. It looks quite dry. It almost reminds me of the first test pitch, which was awful. So back to England squad, I mean, if they're picking James Anderson on a pitch that was like that, and if it's anything like the first test, he won't be effective whatsoever with his movement off the pitch. So really interested to see what the pitch does. Australia, I think Green comes in. I think Warner stays. I think Murphy goes out. The big one for me is, do we bring in Hazelwood for Boland or Nisa for Boland? Now, that's the huge query for me, because Australia don't need to win this test. They'll be happy with the draw. There is rain around. Could we have a world where Green comes in for Murphy, Nisa comes in for Boland, and suddenly Cummins is our number 11, and we bat for days? It's suddenly a strong-looking batting order, Darren.
Yeah, so you'd have, say, Marsh 6, Green 7, Carey 8, and then you'd have Nisa 9, Stark 10, Cummins 11. It's a pretty deep batting lineup if they go down that path. And yeah, there'd have to be the temptation to treat it like an old Shield final where you only need the draw, so you bat for as long as you can. I mean, England will play fast, so they'll try to rollick the game along as they do. But yeah, there'd have to be a temptation for us to sit there and go, look, we're in no hurry whatsoever in terms of our scoring. We're not talking about sort of stonewalling, but yeah, solidify your batting like England did in the 5th test in 2005 when they picked Collingwood to replace Jones, and then try to, occupy the crease as long as you possibly can.
I'd love to see it. There's no reason. I'd love to see us win a toss. If we won the toss, I say we, obviously we talk about Australia. If Australia win the toss, I think we potentially put England in. They'll hurry the game along. We'll come in bat, probably, if England bat well, we'll come in at lunch on day 2 and just bat. We can bat for 6, 7 sessions, put the game away from England, and it's on them to hurry the game up. Australia only need a draw to retain the Ashes. That's good enough. I'd love to go into the 5th test, Australia 2-1 up, and we're home. So really interesting. Australia will be happy with that. I would love to see Australia do that. Cummins coming in at 11's brilliant. I think that's the only decision. I think Green has to come in for Murphy. I think Labuschagne could bowl some overs. Head can bowl some overs. I don't have an issue with that. And you've got 4 quicks, or 3 quicks potentially, and 2 all-rounders that bowl quite well. And I don't think you lose much there. So I would love to see that. I just think it's a case of Hazelwood or Nisa. Nisa's coming off 170 odd, wasn't it, Darren? So
yeah, 176, yeah.
He's in form. It was a some knock. He came in at 7 for not many and took the game away. So he's in form. I would love to see that. Just bat for as long as possible, and for that reason, I'm not laying the draw for the first time, Darren.
Yeah, it feels the most possible. I mean, England, perhaps segueing into the markets a little bit. England are favourites in this test, which I don't think they've been at any stage in the series. So I think they're 260. I've got that in 248 in Australia. Yeah,
Australia at 268, and the draw $4.40. So the draw's been fluctuating. There is a bit of weather around.
Yeah,
I'm putting something in the low bin, Darren, weather forecast over there. I can't find a forecast that resembles anything similar to each other over there. Every forecast I look at is completely different.
Yeah, I found the same problem observing Wimbledon. It's like, well, what's exactly going on over there? I mean, they might as well just forecast rain. But it is interesting if we look more long term at the forecast in terms of the market. So Australia have gone from $1.21 out to $1.46 to win the series. England $11 into $5.70, but just wanted to put that in historical context. So there have been 116 5-test series played in the history of the game, and only once has a team been 2-0 down and won, and that was Australia in 1936 against England. And when Australia did that, in the last 3 test matches, Donald Bradman made 270, 212 and 169 not out. So that's what it took for a team to win from 2-0 down, was Bradman doing that. So England at $5.70 would have to produce probably the greatest result in the history of the game to win. So I'd want more than $5.70 on that. I'm going to throw to Ryan Harris, though, because he feels that obviously because of how even the series has been and how even each test match has been, that they are indeed a chance, but that's what they're going to have to overcome.
Oh, it's definitely even. And they definitely are a chance. I hate saying that with England, but they've played some pretty good cricket. We've played some really good cricket as well. We probably haven't been out of their best and managed to win, or be ahead in the series, but they've played some good cricket as well. And when you probably look back at it, it's, either team could be sitting 2-1 or 3-0, either one, which is, I think, that sort of says a lot about the series and how close it's been. I think England have dropped 14 odd catches and missed probably a couple of stumpings. So if you look back at that and potentially they take those catches, even half of those, the result could be so different. So yes, they can do it. No doubt about that. I would think everyone's talking about momentum being in England's favour. I'm not sure about that. I mean, we still hold the lead. It was a close test match in that last test match. So, look, it's as it has been. It's been a phenomenal series again. And, with 2 tests to go, it feels a bit funny with the 9-day break, actually. It's sort of, cricket's gone in the background a bit. But, obviously with it starting in tomorrow, it's all going to start up again. So looking forward to that.
There was Ryan Harris having a chat about that. But, do you give England any chance, I guess, on the basis of that?
I think the bet is, and I still think it's value, Australia to retain the Ashes $1.21. Now, a lot of people don't like short odds, but I still think that's value, Darren. Australia just need to draw a test, and I'd love to see the squad. And if we do pick, we'll drop Murphy potentially and bring in Green and Anisa, then I think that's value, because Australia can just draw the test and pray for a bit of rain, and that might be enough. So $1.21 does look value. I was happy to see the Australian women's cricket team, after the series was following a similar path to the men's, Darren. Momentum was all with England. Australia won the first couple of matches and only needed one more in the women's to retain the Ashes. And then England strung consecutive victories together. It flowed similar to the Australian series. So I'm happy from a momentum perspective. It probably doesn't mean anything, but the fact that the women came out and beat England and retained the Ashes there. So positives, I think Australia will do the same. I think Australia can retain the Ashes, and $1.21. I still think that's a bit of value. Yeah,
and I still like those. We spoke before the series about scorelines, where I think we were looking at the odds that were available for 3-1, 3-2, 4-1. And if we do get results, all of those 3 are in play. In fact, they're almost the only option. So I still think that they represent good value. We thought England would win a test. They have. Hopefully they don't win another, but they may. But it does keep that possibility open of, the 3-2s and 4-1s, which I think was sensible when it started.
They can win the dead rubber, Darren. Lose this, go 3-1 up. I was on SEN Sunday a week ago, and my co-host Damien was cheering for England to win the test for the sake of the series. Now, get stuffed, Damien.
I can understand that, provided the result goes the right way in the end. I can understand that. Look, it's been such a fascinating series that if it was wrapped up in 3, you'd almost feel shortchanged to a degree. So as long as it goes the right way, I'm kind of glad that the series is still alive.
I'm too nervous for that, pacing around my living room at 2 a.m, Darren. So Australia can win this quite comfortably, and I'll be happy. Let's get to the new ball, Darren. Some betting strategies. I've just highlighted one of mine. Where are you heading with the new ball?
Interesting, there's an odds discrepancy around most runs in the series, just from an English point of view. So Khawaja's obviously all the rage for Australia and for the series, but Ben Stokes is shorter than Joe Root to be England's leading run scorer, but Joe Root is shorter than Ben Stokes to be the overall leading run scorer. So whatever you think is most likely, back the opposite.
What does that mean, Darren?
Yeah, well, that's right. So it's probably liquidity, but back the other one. So if you think Joe Root will be the leading run scorer for England, maybe take the 335 second favourite for his team. If you think Ben Stokes will be the leading run scorer, then maybe take the $7 outsider for the series. So I'd be looking at just finding the value in one of those two for England.
You might be able to chip away and make a book either way there. That's really interesting. Any other players with the new ball? Where are you pitching it?
I think the series wicket taker one is probably just about wrapped up. Obviously, the value sits around Mitch Starc, who took a bunch of wickets, took a fifer in that third Test match. But it does look like Cummins or Broad would be the likely there. But I think Starc plays the rest of the series, so maybe there's a smidgen of value around him at the sevens for mine.
Don't say that, Darren, because I've backed Cummins and I've just hedged and saved a little bit on Broad because I think he's the only danger. So don't even mention Starc most wickets, please. I've got Broad and Cummins going for a nice result. So that's what we want. In terms of my strategies, I'm backing Australia to retain the Ashes at $1.21. I still think we'll win the series, $1.46 there. As in the fourth test, I don't know what to do here. I think the draw might be shorter than $4.40, but I'm hesitant to take that because I've been against the draw all series, and it's a battle of two different approaches, which is going to make this fourth test really, really interesting. England need a win. Australia don't mind, and they might be a bit more defensive. So I joked at lunch today with a couple of cricket fans, Darren, that Australia might bat and make 600, and England might declare 4 for 400, 200 behind, or something like that. Can Australia enforce a follow-on if England declare?
That's a very good point. Probably. I don't think that would have ever happened before, which is probably sums up this series. It's that someone would declare in a follow-on position, but anything's possible. But I would say that if you think there'll be a result, the way this series has gone, both sides would have traded as favourite in every match. So if you bank on that happening, then there's a chance that you can make money either way by backing Australia as the outsider, waiting for them to become favourites, and then backing England. And therefore you get both of them as outsiders, which I think we would have got away with that in every test so far.
That's a great shout. And we've done well. I think our selections so far this series, Darren, we'll pat ourselves in the back, have been pretty good. We've laid the draw consecutively. We've found the leading wicket taker so far in the series. We're trading out of positions constantly. And if anyone's been watching, they should be in a profitable position. Anything to finish on, mate? Stumps? We're calling stumps on this edition of Cricket Trade Talk?
Yeah, just really keen to see how it goes. Obviously, Wood and Wokes have made a big difference for England, but I think it's time that we just get it probably only takes one contribution, a Warner or a Marnus, the two guys that are under the pump. If one of them gets going, it's probably enough from the position we're in. So hopefully they can drive us home.
Love to see it. Come on, Australia. Win the fourth test. This has been Betfair's Ashes Cricket Trade Talk with Tom Haylock and Darren Parkin. We'll be here again for the ahead of the final test. Hopefully it's a dead rubber, Darren. Thank you for joining me, mates.
No worries at all. Looking forward to it. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.